Such trash.
All right, welcome to the entertainment jungle. Today, we are going to be going on a journey in a small town with a military man. But we'll get into the weeds of it. But we're going to talk about Rebel Ridge, which has been pretty highly rated on Netflix. So we will see if we agree. Up next on the entertainment jungle. Right? Wasn't it high rated before?
How can you tell?
It's always number one.
But that doesn't mean that it's.
That doesn't mean anything.
Means anything.
I think that's I don't know what their algorithm decides is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what their algorithm decides either. But so we're going to talk about Rebel Ridge. We have myself, Cornelius. We have Ryan the Lion, and we have Walter today. We swear 66 is coming back from his fishing trip. I promise you he'll be here soon. But let's start off with the IMDb description of this one. We have Rebel Ridge. A former Marine grapples his way through a web of small-town corruption when an attempt to post bail for his cousin escalates into a violent standoff with a local police chief.
Pretty good.
That's a good one,
That's
right?
accurate.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I love when they have a good one and all three of us are like, "Oh, that's pretty good."
Yeah.
You described the movie. So, like always, let's get some overall thoughts before we get into some of the nitty gritty of this, and then I'm curious if anyone knows the movie that the main actor was in previous to this, which is, I'll give you a hint. Oh, you do? I figured you might.
This guy does.
But let's start with Ryan the Lion then. What were your overall thoughts on this one?
I like this one. I thought this was good. It was I always love a you don't realize who you messed with revenge movie. And it's just one of my favorite tropes. They're like, you really messed up. And I thought this was a good one. I thought it delivered on that archetype, and yeah, I had a good time.
I was all right. So I'm gonna let Walter go first, but I do need to know if this reminded you of another movie, because it did, and I can't think of the name, and I couldn't even look it up. Maybe
Try to describe the way you remember the movie, like
you don't know who you're messing with, goes to a small town, like all these things, and I'm like, what movie was this? But maybe it'll click as we talk about it. So
was it Walking Tall?
No, but I do have a comment about these kind of rock movies in a minute as well. So Walter, what are your overall thoughts on this one?
I'm not on the same page as Ryan the Lion this week, so I enjoyed it, but I described this movie as that's it. Like every single scene, almost the whole movie, I kept going, that's it. It got me from the beginning right away. You know, the racism, the small town, the very first scene I was in, but then I kept going, okay, that's it. Nothing panned out for me, and I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. I mean, I liked it a little bit. So I don't even know how to describe what I was feeling for this movie. But I guess we'll just get into it.
So now our goal is to find out if you liked it or didn't like it through the rest of this conversation.
Basically,
we have to decide for you, because
it's always a tough one.
You have to sell me.
Yeah, you are sometimes the wild card. We have to sell you.
All right,
so.
I think I don't know. We'll see what happens.
I'm per usual. I'm kind of in the middle. I did like this, but there was a little bit of the. I mean, I'm gonna probably keep coming back to this. I wish, as we found out more about this person who you don't want to mess with, I wish he kind of showed it a little more. I wish there was more fighting. Maybe
which
right?
That's it, right? That's right.
So
see, I get what you're saying.
Because I was even impressed with the way it escalated. Like the first, we'll call it fight in front of the police station. It was more of like a wrestling match. Like he was like wrestling them, throwing their weapons away, all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, okay, cool. He's not like, giving them like a chop to the throat and completely disabling them. It was like a little grapple. And then I was like, oh, this is going to get a lot worse really fast. And then it kind of didn't. And that's maybe where Walter's coming from. I don't know.
Everything started to build, and then it was like, nah, we're good. And then they escalate. which is what they said. They follow through. A lot of de-escalation.
Yeah, that was kind of
Actually-
why it didn't bother me, because it felt very deliberate. That was like
Yes.
they weren't trying to make him like a John Wick, Vin Diesel rock character that just is gonna like go in and like shoot up the whole town and get back at them that way. Like it was just kind of it was like, well, he has these skills, but the whole time he was just like, I don't want, like
Yes.
I don't want any of this. Like he never turned into that, like, never mind, now you've pushed me too far and I'm just going to destroy everything. He was
But-
always that, like, no, I hate this. I don't want to push like anyone farther than I absolutely have to, and you are the ones that are really forcing me to do any of this.
He kind of did get to that point though. He literally was like, "I'm banned now." Like the moment they drug, or the second or third time they let him go and brought him back. I mean, there was like a dozen times that he got away and came back. It was so annoying, but it was so justified in my mind. Like, you should kill them all, just massacre them all.
But like,
and it didn't pay off for me. It's just like, oh,
but
okay.
the thing, but I mean, I guess the only issue with those types of movies is like, it never accounts for like the next day of having to explain how you murdered like 100 people, whereas this one
Sorry.
does. Okay, and kind of how he was the whole time. Like, he was so measured because he was thinking about the consequences of what he was doing every time he had to do something. So like, he doesn't have to deal with, oh, now I have to explain why I murdered 100 people, because he didn't do anything he didn't absolutely have to. And
So
I thought that was kind of what was a unique take about this to me.
I give you unique. I definitely give you unique. Good is not unique. Is not always good.
I did make a note at the end of this, which isn't a spoiler yet. This was way more grounded than a movie with The Rock, because I did compare it to like a Walking Tall, where he walks around. Is that the one where he walks around with a 2x4, just like hitting people?
Or The Rundown.
Or The Rundown, same thing. So I was like, okay, I get what they were doing, and they did it well. This was very grounded. This was very real. This was very kind of like, bare bones thing. So I got all that out of it. Maybe I'm so used to the second part of it. And right, where all of a sudden he kills the whole town.
Exactly, where it's like, nope, now you've pushed me too far. I'm just gonna murder everyone. But I appreciated he was true to the character that we were given, and that's the thing for me, where like, if you give me a character, if you give me a piece of information and you stick to that, I'm gonna be pretty happy about it. Like, that was kind of like how they set him up, like from the jump. Like, he had every reason to go ballistic from the get-go. And he just wasn't. He just had that control, that measure, that ability to like, almost like the quiet confidence that he showed the whole time, knowing like, I could do so much more damage than I'm choosing to do now. Like, I'm holding back, and he always did.
So I do have maybe something that'll connect both of these things. This movie wasn't overly long, right? But it was still over 2 hours. And it felt like, and movies have done this before to me, it's felt like it was two movies in one. So there was still an hour and a half left to the movie, and he already like resolved the posting bail. Sorry, spoiler alert, it didn't go well. But I'm like, oh my god, what's left? Oh, because I thought maybe if this movie was like an hour 40, it could have solved all of that. Then I wouldn't want him to go on a rampage. I'd be like, oh cool, everything kind of resolved. It was really cool. He kind of won maybe. But what did you think of that? Did you think it was like, I don't know, not too long, but did you think it kept like going maybe? Or I thought it was like almost two movies. Like, his first goal was to get his cousin out, which didn't work. And then, like I said, 40 minutes into the movie, then he starts unraveling this strange town that he's in, which he can't seem to, which was a good use of the character, his friend, Summer, to bring him back to the town. Because I was like, there's no reason he has to go back to this town.
And that's the thing, like, he just wanted to get away, but then, he kept getting dragged back in, either from the actions of the cops literally not letting him get away, or when they attacked his friend and dragged him back. Like he I don't know. It worked for me that he truly, truly did not want any part of this.
No.
And again, it was to me. It felt like because he knew he was human. He acted like someone that wasn't in a movie. Like he acted like someone that knew, like there are consequences to my actions, and I could die.
No, he did not. He acted like a character in a movie. I disagree, because who in their right mind, after going through all of that, still didn't want to do anything? Still didn't want to get revenge on any of them? Are you kidding me? Your cousin died. They drugged one of arguably what your friend was in this. They shot you in the back multiple times. The racism right off the bat to me was enough to, like, you know what? I'm going to kill you. That was like the first scene.
I know it.
Yeah.
I know the first scene was.
No,
dude.
No,
I mean, don't get me wrong. But I think think about the maddest you've ever been in your life. How many people did you murder that day?
But there's a difference. I'm not trained like that, and I'm not going through that type of.
But being trained to do it still doesn't relinquish you of the inherent risk and consequences of those actions. Like you aren't trained to kill, but like if you were in a movie, you wouldn't care. You would still try and kill. But like in real life, you understand that that would go badly for me, no matter how upset I am. This guy is trained to kill, but can't kill a police force. But he can maybe kill like one or two.
But that wasn't. I don't feel like that was his motivation. It wasn't nothing to do with. He was just running from everything like all the time. He wasn't really like, oh, I'm worried that I'm going to get caught.
He would literally die, no matter how well trained. Like the best the greatest, strongest, fastest Marine in the world would die in this situation. In real life, that's just true.
But he did it. So you're saying if he started to escalate and started killing them, he would have died?
Well, yeah. What saved him most of the time was that.
It didn't change the fact. They were still trying to kill him.
What saved him was like his restraint. Like people were kind of like respecting his restraint, which was kind of what got him out of a lot of this trouble.
So I do have
one
a question.
Guy who got shot. Oh, I'm sorry. Where?
No, I want to bring it back to. We have a comment from Ari who's tuning in, and he wants to know, which is one of my questions that was coming up. How did you think Don Johnson did in this movie? I can say the rest of it. He says he feels like he should retire, but my connection to this question is, what did you think of that? What were the police in this small town to like? Did he make it mad enough to do what you're saying? To keep restraint or go on a rampage? That's how I connect that question. Like, what did you think of the police chief's character? Because he was an ass.
Oh, I thought he was, again, like to me, he seemed very believable. Like I feel like I would not be surprised to meet this guy that was like the sheriff of a small town. Like I'd be like, oh yeah, that's spot on.
Yeah. Like
just like a smarmy kind of like douchebag. Like even like how he was like, hey, why don't you check this guy's background before I get into this real quick?
He did play a very good,
because he's kind of like, he's kind of a coward and a bully. Yes. Like it's like, yeah, that's exactly what I would expect this guy to be like.
Yeah, and even like if you look on the screen, like this picture of like, look at their postures. Like he actually did a good job of playing that kind of like acts tough, but the second there's anything that he has to do,
exactly. Like the look on his face when he pulled the gun and the guy grabbed it was perfect. He was just like, oh my god, no.
So I think we're kind of in agreement, but Walter, do you think this push should have pushed him over the edge? Because I thought he killed him at one point, but then he was using non-lethal force, which I actually kind of thought was good, but I did think eventually it would get to that point where it would cross over.
How many times are you going to forgive him for having your cops run you off the road, for basically calling you a punk and I'm untouchable, and you're not going to do anything, to getting you shot, to drugging somebody, to like he just kept going, having your cousin murdered. Like it was just over and over, and it's like eventually you're gonna have to reach that point.
I don't think you do. Like again, like to me, it felt way more grounded. Like he understood that if he murdered this guy, that the full force of everyone else would now want to murder him. Like right now, like they torture him, they treat him like shit, but no one's murdering him. And like there were a couple times where he thought that might happen.
So at the end, when he's shooting with the smoke bombs, that at that time was not justified for him to start murdering people.
But I mean, I would have been fine with it.
Yeah,
I would have been fine with it. The law would not have been fine with it. And to me, this movie was like his character was someone that understood the consequences of his actions throughout this film. And the consequences of murdering these people, no matter how justified, if he had murdered these people, he would go to jail. Like, you can't be like, hey, these guys were dicks, so I murdered them. Like,
I'm sorry, they're shooting you. You're allowed to respond with equal force.
But they're cops, he's still going to be on trial and probably lose that fight. Like he knows, like that's real life. In real life, if you murder cops that are trying to shoot you, that's not always going to end well for you.
I agree with both of you. I agree that I actually agree. It's so weird. I agree that this is the first movie where we're actually talking about the law is real in the movie. Like,
but because I was like, oh my god, this is actually a grounded take on this story.
Yes.
Which is why it worked for me, because I was like, usually they're just like, no, consequences don't exist. Do what makes everyone feel good because we want these assholes to die. Whereas to me, this one was the other side of that of like, hey, of course we want these assholes to die, but this guy from the jump has been doing everything in his power not to get killed and go to jail. So why would he suddenly turn that part of himself off?
It's a very interesting dynamic because as a viewer, you feel like this character is justified if it happens.
Oh, 100%. I wanted him to kill them, but if you are trying to make this a grounded movie, that story ends with him in prison.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. You have a corrupt cop going after you with a whole bunch of other people that were also not cops, probably shooting at you, and if you shoot back and kill him, or a couple of them, I just can't see how you would have gone to jail.
Would the evidence that he,
especially if you had people helping you, like if the one female cop testified,
innocent people go to jail all the time.
Yep.
That's kind of how this story started. This story literally started because tons of innocent people were being put in jail.
In a small town.
So actually, can we talk about that?
That's where he is. That's where he is. That's what he has to do.
Who would have arrested him in that small town? Especially if he killed them all, he would have had to go to the next county or everything, and then he would have
if he had successfully murdered everyone in the town, then there wouldn't be anyone left to enforce the law. But again, odds are he would have gotten hit by one of them if he just opened fire on all these cops.
There is something funny. Wait, but there is something funny about this town. That's
where I'm confused. Oh, go ahead.
There's something funny about this town. Every time a car was following him, it was always a cop. I didn't see any other cars or normal people in this entire town. It was only cops. So maybe
cops or construction workers.
Oh, well, yeah, with shotguns. That was funny.
And rifles.
Construction worker with shotguns. Who had great form, according to the Marine, which was also a clever, he's actually has good form, so don't mess up this little hostage situation. But yes, that was kind of funny. I made a note. Every time someone was on the road, it was just him and a cop and a cop car. All right. This so far, this conversation has taken a turn that I was not expecting going into it, to be honest with you.
Listen, between me and Walter, I am the one that is the expert on the law.
Yeah. Super inside joke. Wait, but I do want to talk about the whole scenario. I want to know if I understood it. Maybe some people watching didn't understand. I'm no lawyer, but they were arresting people with minor offenses, like super minor, right? Like a fake, like a stolen bike in the very beginning, and the possession, but then purposely keeping them in jail to make more money, to raise the bail.
So what it was is they were abusing and robbing these people, and because they had gotten in trouble before, now they're their cameras are recorded for 90 days.
Okay.
And they get erased if there's no reason to look at them for those 90 days. So basically, these people were committing offenses that, they'd usually be in jail for like overnight or something, but they were holding them for 90 days because they knew that if this did end up going to trial, or those people got out and were able to get someone to look at their cameras, they would see that they had been abusive and literally robbed them.
Oh,
so they needed to keep for 90 days so that footage would be erased.
Oh, so they were actually robbing these people as like
that's what that's how they were making all of this money. They were literally robbing people, beating them up for no reason. I mean, they were all they were just jerks. So they would like beat some of these guys up, I'm sure, but like robbing them was a big part of their whole plan.
Okay, so because I was a little confused, like obviously this guy had all the money for his cousin's bail and his truck that he wanted, but I didn't make the connection that all the other minor offenses. Also, I know they talked about using that money to fund the town and stuff. So,
but it was, I mean, I think they would like, it wasn't just like it was money, it was guns, it was drugs. Like they were just like stealing whatever people had on them that had value.
Okay, all right, thank you. I might have missed that one little part because I was trying to connect the dots because I'm like, all right, you knew immediately there's something wrong with this town. Like, it just so happened that this guy made it to this town. I was gonna say, so let's talk about the movie a little bit. Besides the law in the movie, we'll get back to that, I guess, in a second. So, were there moments of tension that did this play on at least certain things, like when he was giving the bail money and he kept looking over his shoulder when they were in the basement looking for the evidence and stuff? Like, were there moments like in this movie that made you feel tense or made you feel like did they play up that aspect of it? Like, we have the realism, we have the fact that he did or did not go on a murderous rampage, but I'm trying to think about some other stuff. Like, they did actually answer a lot of questions in this movie, which we like I was writing down stuff like, why is she helping him? Oh, and then he asked that question. I'm like, great, you're gonna tell me. I was like, why is there a guy he's calling with a fake accent, an Asian accent on the phone? I was like, oh, and then they explained kind of like that they went to that restaurant. I was like, oh, cool. Finally, a movie where they're showing me stuff early and telling me stuff that they explain. But I was curious if certain movie elements you liked in this movie. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, I did like
that. Controversial as.
No, I did like that. They kind of like you said, like oftentimes they'd be like, "Huh, what's going on there?" and they would explain it. I was like, "Great, that's awesome." Or I don't know. I just appreciated a lot of the interactions between the characters. Like, I don't know, it just worked for me, man.
A complete opposite for me.
It's allowed to work for you.
It didn't. Yeah, we're finally against each other versus on the same page. It's been a while. So
that is true. Yeah. I do like the back and forth here. I do want to talk about this actor, right? So go ahead. Do you remember what movie he was in? That's my question. Old, right? He was like the rapper.
Midsize sedan.
Yeah. Which I knew I recognized him, and then I had to look it up. I'm like, oh, I think I know him from Old.
It's the eyes, man. Can't forget those piercing eyes.
It must be the eyes. So I also wanted to know, like, how you thought he portrayed this. I like the fact that, like, he was like keeping up with the bus on his bike. Like, they made him, like, I was like, they gave him some cool stuff, like where he was he was like, I believe he's a Marine that can that could be a one-man weapon. I also love that scene when they find that out. That's kind of a classic, like, the computer's not loading, but it's important information we need right now.
Yeah, so. I did love when she was like, oh wait, I think he's on the Wikipedia page. It's like, oh
yeah, the Wikipedia page for the type of fighting style he's an expert in.
Yeah, he's perfect. Like, what's a McMap?
So, like, even there, it had some stuff. I kind of like that. Before it gets too late, I do. This is the biggest spoiler of the movie. I want to know both of your opinions on Serpico, and if you thought the misdirection was good, and if you also thought Serpico was who he thought originally. I mean, spoiler alert, right?
I don't even know what you're asking. I must have went over my head.
Wait a second. So there was someone that gave Summer some inside advice, like midway through the movie, right?
Oh, that was her name.
And he he made a code name called Serpico. It's a reference to another movie. But then he trusts her, right? When he's like attacking the precinct, and she like turns his back. So then at the end, it's the white cop that's actually the one who was helping her out. Did no one follow that? I'm not.
No,
this up.
I followed it after you explained it, but I didn't know by
okay.
name. Like I just like, who the hell's Serpico? Is that an operation that we missed? Like, what is that?
No, that was the code name for the person who was giving secret information. But I also wanted to know, like, if that whole plot line was good, and the guy who ended up being the good cop, wasn't that the one that arrested him in the very beginning? Right?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
Well, what was his justification again? To flip sides all of a sudden? I don't remember him saying anything.
I just think he was like a good cop that was like had to do a little bit of bad things, right? Because he was involved.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It definitely. I mean, I guess it was his motivation definitely wasn't clearly explained. I just assumed it was like over time of doing this, it just really took a toll on him, and so he was trying to find a way to make it right. And that's why he was kind of giving the information to Summer. And that's why at the end, when they had this guy detained, he was like, okay, we did it. We don't need to kill him. We have, we've subdued him. We should do our jobs.
That's what I thought. Like that. So, yeah. And then since you thought it was the woman cop, but then you find out like she actually has to be turned during this whole altercation where she finally realizes what like her boss is doing.
Yeah, she was weirdly committed to Don Johnson. I understand that.
She was weirdly committed, like anything. So I thought that was actually a pretty good misdirection. I was not expecting that, especially since, he kind of arrested him in the beginning pretty aggressively racist, I guess. But
I did think that she was going to turn on him just because, like, the way it was set up, I was like, oh man, I don't trust her right now. But I did not expect the cop that was the good cop to that caught me by surprise. I was like, oh, him?
So then I'm confused. She was not the one that was helping Summer.
I don't think so. That's what I'm trying to. That's what I think it was
because I still thought she was.
Well, because this was a movie thing. She said, "Well, he's like, oh well." Who is he, the one giving you the information? And she's like, oh, who says it's a he? Can't it be a she? That was just for us, the audience. That line was, I don't think that was purposeful for anybody but the audience to misdirect us into thinking it was her. That's my opinion.
Oh, it was thought you
because this
points out.
Like, I thought, like,
cool. I was like, this was like a big question. Cool. I was like, this was like a big question.
You're ex-Marine. You don't have any connections. You don't have
in this small
anyone
town?
to come help.
I don't know, man. That's a bit of a stretch. Like calling another
open up this
it up to like a more pressing. So like going.
What is his remedy? Because
what he did,
what
he kind of. This is going to, but I'm going to do everything in my power not to end up that way. But that this girl that I befriended has been in. But I think that he was, didn't want to put.
I don't know. I just found
if he had murdered every single one of them, like, well, no, this guy is a super guy. Like, no matter how skilled.
I'm actually saying I don't like it after the conversation. It's all to just kind of amount to nothing, and I think that's what
the sheriff, and they're going to turn him in.
Cops that were following him, or was that a different county? Cop?
They were the girl clearly. Then why are we really helping this guy? So I think after he shot that other cop, that was when the other cop was like, oh, shit.
I thought it was different cop. I thought it said something different on the side. Maybe I was reading it different. I thought it was another county that it makes more sense what you're saying, but
all of this hardship is going to go down because his own get. I mean, he's probably going to go to prison.
I feel like in that situation, money, like in the end, would that have
kind of like it was to keep their precinct? It didn't seem like they were like wealthy. I think,
right? The judge, that whole scene with thing, because
that like no one. Yeah, all the other cops, it seemed like they were all just kind of like roped in, like we're all gonna, but they were all just kind of like, and then this guy, it and it get murdered, and the rest of these guys are kind of just caught.
Oh, so I kind of thought the opinion would have changed, but at least we saw you snap.
Like, all right.
No, I mean, I didn't know of that specifically. That's what that was called. If you're like a one-man soldier.
Well, I don't. I mean, I guess that's real. I didn't bother to look it up.
Yeah,
it sounded legit. The Marine Corps martial arts program.
Yeah, it sounds good enough, right?
Sure.
Yeah, right.
It sounds badass.
So I found a cool trivia note that I wanted to bring up. It said that John Boyega was originally set to star, and he left the project midway through filming, which this is IMDb trivia. And then they had to get a new actor and reshoot his scenes. So my two questions were, or my one question was, there's no way this would have been anywhere near as probably good with him. Like, I think this is like a bad.
I don't think that would have been remotely believable with him.
Oh yeah, definitely not believable. That reminds me of like the Back to the Future where they, Eric Stoltz filmed the movie and they're like, nope, and then it was a better movie with Marty McFly, or it was a better movie with Michael J. Fox. So I thought that was an interesting bit of trivia. I thought this oh man, I forgot his name.
Mid-size sedan.
Mid-size sedan, yeah.
I thought he did a great job.
I thought he did a great job, yeah. And to go back to Ari's question, I actually thought Don Johnson did a pretty good job.
I did too.
Considering, I mean, his character was a little one-dimensional, but still, he did a good job at it. He was a dick sheriff, so,
You wanted him dead. I mean, good job.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think you did. I think you worked out there.
I just wanted his cops to turn on him and him to go to prison. So,
wait, that happened at the end, right?
That's
okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I get it. That's what you wanted, and that's what happened.
I don't think it's justified because that means they're not going to get punished, right? Is that how it's going to work? That they've done all this bad, and then at the end, it's going to be like, oh, you're good. I mean, you might lose your job and everything, but you're not going to be prosecuted or anything.
I mean, that's kind of how it does work.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, that's why they ended the movie with him holding the evidence, and then they just faded to black.
Yeah. Because it's like, all right, we're not going to get into this next part.
We're not going to get into the rest of the law.
But, like, this is he did what he could,
That'll be part 2.
Oh, man, part 2 will be the trial.
And how calm and collected he is throughout the whole trial. You're like, are you kidding me? You're not going to shout once?
He's a very respectful man.
It was funny. Based on when I said, I thought this was like 2 movies. Once he sat down, I was like, "Oh, there's more to this movie." I
know. I was like, "Oh, third movie coming."
Yeah, I was not expecting it to end when it did there, but yeah, it did anyway. So, well, I'm kind of curious. Before we get into our ratings, was there anything else? Like, I mentioned a bunch of little things that I did like about this movie, and I liked it overall. I thought it was good. I mean, compared to some of the other movies we've watched, but I did like it overall. So. Is there anything that we missed that was kind of like cool about this?
I had a question about when he went to the Chinese restaurant and he got patched up. What was the note? I think I missed it. What did he wrote on that post-it note? What did he write?
He wrote that this soup was good. Here's the month. It was like
for payroll, right?
Yeah. It definitely said for payroll. Oh. Yeah.
Well, actually, if you want to leave one thing open-ended. They explained who that guy was, but not if his restaurant was a front for something. Yeah. I will say that. Because he shows up. First of all, there's a shady phone call a couple times. Then he shows up and gets patched up. And he says, this is a person who fought against the Americans in, like, Vietnam. And then they're like, here's some soup and money. And then they leave him alone. So I was like, all right. Maybe. I don't know if I even wanted more information, but that was perhaps something that was left there. I don't know.
I just felt like the whole movie, they dangled something there in front of you, but then it didn't amount to something. Like, I didn't understand. Thanks for payroll. I'm like, oh, does that mean this doctor is going to go get other people to help him, like to combat these guys, or like, what was the point of saying payroll? Is it to pay off all the regular employees? Because why do we need to know that?
I mean, I thought immediately something was shady. Like I said, when they answered, and the guy immediately dropped his Chinese accent, like as soon as he knew who it was.
Yeah.
And he could get $10,000 like that, like in a snap. That was kind of.
But it didn't amount to anything. It's just
Right.
like, here's a story, but we're not going to really touch on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I needed it either, but yes.
Yeah, like that was fine with me. I was like, okay, that's cool.
If there was a loose end, that would probably be it. But yeah, but out of everything, that was negligible. But yeah, I don't have an answer for that one. Maybe he paid him like $10,000 for the soup. It was that good.
Yeah, but then said payroll, which no idea what that meant.
I assume that like
wait,
somehow
can I give a good answer?
Sure.
He is giving odd jobs to ex-military people who maybe struggled to get jobs.
Which would have been cool if they one-liner would have done that, right? Or something.
Like he helps him, deliver Chinese food and other stuff. So maybe, but he's doing it in a good way. That's a good thing he's doing. That's
I guess it didn't impact the plot enough for me to care. Like it was just like it was just there.
But it should.
Like, all right,
but
that's fine.
Now that we're talking about it, it should, because you basically in the beginning you were like, hey, look, this guy might be shady, maybe not, which then makes you go, okay, so how this hero, how good is he really? Was he doing bad things for this Chinese guy, or was he not? Like, what was going on? So for me, it's like it left enough open where I'm like, I kind of needed, I wanted an answer.
I didn't think he was doing anything shady.
But you don't know that because you didn't know what the Asian guy was doing, right? Because if he was doing something shady, does that mean he was running too? Like, was he drug running? Was he gun running? Was he like, what was he doing to survive?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'll have to leave that one open. I'm not sure. Well, since we're gonna get into our ratings, you actually might. Well, one of you might be surprised, and one of you might not be surprised. So, on average, everybody from IMDb 6.9 out of 10. Critics are at a 96%.
That's now how I know I'm right. That is how I know I am right there.
And the
audience
is at a 71%, so they also liked it.
Everybody likes it. Critics and audiences.
It's not
the moment you said critics and in the 90s.
But the audience likes it too.
It doesn't matter. You already said critics.
What?
So
just when the critics go that high, come on. We've always gone against them.
Well, if the audience is negative and the critics are positive, if both are positive, that's like Terminator 2. Both were positive.
True. Well, I always let everyone go first, and then if someone takes my rating, I go. Do you want me to go first, and then you two can see how opposite the spectrums you
are? Sure. Whatever you want to do, man.
Let's do that. So listen, this movie was pretty good. It was a little long. It had a little bit of left ends, but I liked it. I liked the actors. I thought it was good, right? I wish he fought a little more, whether he killed or not, even though there was a good gun battle. So listen, I thought it was good. It's worth the watch. I'm going with 6.5. So I thought it was pretty good, right? I'm pretty much with IMDb on this one. Mm-hmm. So, if we didn't sway Matt, I got to go Ryan the Lion first.
You definitely did not sway. You made me go lower.
Oh, come on. All right. All right. Well then, let's see. What's your rating out of 10? Your banana rating.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I enjoyed this. I thought that it was a good version of the, you don't know who you messed with. I thought Don Johnson was good. I thought the acting was good. I thought that, I had fun. I enjoyed the ride. I mean, I would have absolutely been cool with it if he had killed some of the jerks, but it kind of worked for me that he didn't. I thought it fit with his character. So I'm going to go with a 7 out of 10.
Ooh.
Yeah, 7 bananas.
It's So how do I bring our score all the way down? I gotta give a 0 then, right? To make sure
Yeah,
that
I mean, that's the only
average
way.
is.
I mean, that will bring the average.
A spite score.
That is definitely a spite
I
score.
don't think you hated
I'm
it
giving
that
this a
much.
-2.
I honestly probably was gonna walk into this more like a 5.5, honestly, just because like the very opening scene, I kind of enjoyed it, but then it kept doing that to me where it's like, okay, cool, something's gonna happen, and then it didn't really pan out for me. Like even the fight scene seemed so slow to me, and it wasn't like there was no big payoff, which I understood because he's doing grappling. Okay, fine, but then seeing it over and over, I'm like, it just didn't work for me, and I didn't like the ending. I mean, the actors did great.
Mhm.
It just didn't pan out for me. So I'm giving it a 4.5. I think there were too many holes. It didn't. There was no bang at the end for me, and I don't recommend this, even though I know most people are not going to agree.
Well, I do like your honesty, and I did like the conversation. I like you guys have it. I mean, you just guys. So, I mean, that was it. That was definitely not what I was expecting when I came.
I still feel like that's a spite score. You lowered it because we liked it, I think.
No, because as we talked about it, I'm sitting there like he should have done more. Like it just as we're talking about it, we're just like, no, that I don't feel like him being so cool and collected was justified or believable. Not, as we talked about it, like in the beginning, I didn't even pay attention to that, but as we talked about it, I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. He did stay extremely cool and collected the whole time. Not once did he like lose his composure.
Yeah, that's exactly the point, though.
And that's to me is not believable.
That's the Marine in him. I thought that's
like that's literally the point.
All right, so next time we're gonna go up to some random Marine, and I want you to just curse at them. Don't even touch them, and see how they react, and say, "Did they say?"
Oh no, that's not always gonna be the case. That's the character that we were given in this movie.
There you go. Yes, we were given that character, but I will not take you up on that offer.
I think that if I walked up to this guy and screamed in his face, he would totally keep his cool. I think that there are a lot of other guys out there that if I screamed in his face, I'd get my ass kicked.
And wait, someone is that calm and collected, serial killers.
So
ran down the line. So I just
actually,
and that's
Which
why
could be part two.
he will be one day, but he'll be so good at it because he's so calm and collected. We'll never know.
And so then I have to wait for that movie so that I can enjoy. But okay, cool. Now he's getting revenge.
That movie will never exist. He'll never get caught.
wait, there was a throwaway line that you might have missed that maybe kind of explains a little bit before we go. He was talking really close to Don Johnson, and he said, "You stopped calling me sir." He's like, that's the one thing you had going for him. So, like, in my opinion, that was his way of, like, flipping it a little. Like, now he's not as calm as he could be, but he still has that yes, sir mentality. Even when he was getting arrested and harassed by the cops at the beginning, you know? Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. You can look in that, sir. No, like,
because
I don't know.
That's how you don't get shot.
That's true.
But the thing is, he was getting shot. That's where, like,
to defend
I get
Walter,
it. Yeah, until the
you're
end.
Right.
Until the end, I roll with you. Okay, fine. You're doing everything you possibly can not to. But now they're shooting at you. You really don't know if you're going to get out of that alive. And to what you said earlier, you basically said in his mind he was going to die or go to jail.
At the end, though, he was going all.
He wasn't shooting. He was not doing anything lethal.
Well, because he didn't have to, because he was skilled
but
enough.
But they were. So that's
no,
what I'm
but
saying. Like,
he was skilled enough to combat them with guns and him with, like, you know, just using what he had around him because of his skills. He, you know, was able to work in that situation because he had, you know, I mean, again, it was 9 times out of 10 he probably gets shot by one of the random bullets and dies. But in this story, he had the cover of smoke, and he used it to his advantage and just snuck up on them and took him out. Like it was believable enough for me.
2 cops in to get him, 2, maybe 3, even though there was a dozen of them out there.
Yeah, I mean,
does he not believe? I don't know. Just we're talking. I'm lowering my score 4.
Well, you can't do that. It's locked in. So yeah, sorry. But I don't know. This one's kind of split. So I guess we'll have to have everyone. Well, I'm in the middle, but don't count me. I'm usually in the middle of everybody. So we kind of need everyone else to tell us, you know, what your banana rating is out of 10. Do you agree with Walter? that he should have just went on a rampage and killed everybody.
No, I said I'd
know,
meet you
a
in the middle.
justified
One, just
rampage.
one.
Just
Just
kill that
one.
one guy.
Just give me one.
I mean, what happened when he knocked him off the car? That was the guy,
He
right?
didn't even do it. The girl did it.
Oh, that's right. The
Yeah.
girl punched him in the face.
I don't
Yeah,
even think
so-
she punched him. She kind of just like pushed him, and then he like fell and passed out, which was weird.
Lower your score because of it.
So,
I am 3.5.
or do you agree that this was a grounded movie about a Marine and that's how they would act? So you let us know. And I will say, although the guys don't know about it, there were some technical difficulties with this. So sorry if you're still tuning in. I appreciate it. And next week, I'm going to pick a sci-fi movie that has no laws in it whatsoever. So we can hypothetically figure out what they would do there. So
Yeah, kill as many people as you want then.
Yes.
so, all right. Well, we'll catch you next week. Thanks for watching.
I need you to let me know what your
Quack
pick is
you
gonna
next
be for the next
time.
one, Ryan, so we could just argue just for fun. Be on opposite sides. That alien should have met. Never mind. I'm gonna stop that.